companies will be engaged in sustainability and driving forward a sustainable vision no matter what their day job. So it's exciting to be here with you all today. We're going to have this be a very interactive session. We want to hear from you all as well as from our esteemed panelists. So to start us off, we want to start with a polling question. So we want to tee up the first question, which is about about whether employee engagement has gotten more important in the past few years or not, just to get a sense of the energy in the room. So let's see. So hopefully that's fairly self-explanatory. If you please could get out your device and text the appropriate number, whether in the past few years employee engagement has become a lower, higher priority or no change. We'll be able to see those results in just a second. So very cool. Wireless technology at work.
Anyone who can figure out how to do this is my hero.
So, is it just going to come up?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So, great. Wow. Any stragglers going to change that number for us?
One responder.
Three.
Three.
There we go. Okay. Well, I have to admit, I was certainly hoping the answer would be a higher priority, or we would be sort of off on a down note to start the panel, because we certainly here do believe that it's a very high priority and one that will continue to rise for companies. All right, so most people certainly are agreeing it's a higher priority. Thank you for your participation. Please keep the numbers coming. So what is employee engagement? Employee engagement is not new. It's a term that's been around for a long time. There's various definitions out there. Just to get us on the same page, I'll start us out with a few definitions. It's motivation to invest discretionary effort in your work. It's a level of support for your organization's strategy or goals. And it's the degree to which the employees feel an emotional connection to the company. So those are the definitions of employee engagement. I think you all know what employee engagement looks like. Think about a time when you were at your most engaged. You were getting to work early, you're putting in your all. Think of someone on your team who's been really engaged, and think of the difference between that person and other people on your team. That's what engagement looks like. There's a lot of data out there that shows that the majority of people in the workforce today, and especially young people, the younger generation, like Dan Hesse talked about a little bit in his remarks this morning, are really passionate about specifically sustainability and how that relates to employee engagement. Net Impact did a research study last year, a national representative study of college students, and we found that 2/3 of students said that they will make a positive social and environmental impact in their career, and more than half said they would in fact take a pay cut to do so. So the data is showing that future employees want to engage on sustainability. There's also data showing how current employees are more higher performing when they engage on sustainability, and I believe Andy's going to get into that more in a minute. So employee engagement really should be a win-win-win. For you, folks who are driving sustainability initiatives forward, you can be much more effective with a team of thousands than a team of probably 1 to 5 that you have now. The employees are passionate about sustainability and really want that to be a part of their core job. And the company will benefit tremendously from having a higher engaged employee base. So this is such a win-win-win, and for almost 90% of you, it's a higher priority. Why does it remain so hard? Well, that's what we're going to try to help you with today. So one more framing question before I introduce my esteemed panelists. We have another question about the biggest barriers that you face in terms of employee engagement. So let's see if we can tee up that question now. Think about what your answer might be. We'll see if we got them right on the multiple choice.
Is it technology?
All right, well maybe we can go ahead and talk a little bit more about our panelists and what they are going to be talking about today. So we have great panelists. I'm not going to read their full bios because you have those in your packets and online. But we have first to my immediate left here, Andy Savitz, who literally wrote the book. It's a wonderful book. I would encourage all of you to run out and buy it. You can even buy it today, right, from 4 to 6 at the book signing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a great book. He covers all kinds of intersections between HR and sustainability, talents, transformation, and the triple bottom line. So he's going to be sharing what he learned through his research process and his writing of the book about the intersection between employee engagement, HR, and sustainability. And then we have, to his left, we have Krista Van Tassel, who is a VP at Wells Fargo, and as part of her responsibility, manages not just one, but 75 green teams across the country. And then Ezra Garrett at the end of the row, who is another underachiever because he's not only VP of Community Relations at PG&E, but also their CSO and Executive Director of PG&E's Foundation. So a lot to talk about from Ezra's perspective as well. Great, so Andy, why don't you start us off? Talk a little bit about what you learned in your book about the connection between employee engagement and sustainability.
Well, thanks, Liz. Can everybody hear? Everybody? Okay, so I've got 5 minutes or less to talk. And those who know me, I'm a little long-winded. I can spend 5 minutes introducing myself, so I feel a little bit like a human tweet. So I am actually going to tweet. So hashtag Boston Marathon. Like many people who are here today, I come from Boston, and I think there are many lessons to be learned from the marathon. But one that sort of relates to what we're going to talk about today is never underestimate the desire of people to want to help and to inspire others to do the same in big or small ways. I think inspiration is a very sort of undersold commodity in sustainability. It's almost as if we're afraid to talk about it in terms of the business case. So hashtag, the most successful engagement program ever, in my opinion. This is a quiz. Many of you participated in it today. And do so frequently. Does anyone want to guess what it is? It's this. It's the hotel towel reuse policy. Okay, this little sign has gotten millions of people to hang up their towels every day. Hotel guests are engaged. Just a quick show of hands. How many people today hung up their towels rather than ask them to be rewashed? How many didn't? And how many didn't even take showers this morning? Well, I think this is an amazingly effective engagement program, which gets people who have really no investment in hanging up towels to do it. But what the surveys show is pretty interesting. In addition to saving the hotels millions of dollars, hashtag American lodging and hotel industry, the surveys show that people do this because it makes them feel good to identify with the environment, and it makes them feel part of a collective effort. The most effective signs, and this one doesn't say it, it just says, to help conserve our environment, please consider hanging up, this is from the hotel here, please consider reusing your towels. But the most effective language says something like 75% of the people who stay here do this. So that's a little bit of peer pressure and a little bit of, collective, being part of a collective, which is a lot about what employee engagement can be. So I think employers can learn something about this totally. It costs nothing to do this, and it's a huge sweet spot for employers, for hotels. And importantly, the surveys also show that people like hotels better that give them the opportunity to engage in this way. So it's pretty interesting. So hashtag, the golden triangle. Okay, so this is a slide from the book that probably went through about 350 drafts. But I think I finally figured it out, and I did it with the help of many companies, some of whom are here today. This slide tries to show the relationship between green teams, business results, and employee motivation, which Liz sort of described. That's employee engagement. Okay, so The left hand is a traditional business case for green teams or sustainability in general. And that's what many of you and many companies are focused on, trying to, it's reducing costs, reducing risk, strengthening brands. That's why most companies do sustainability programs. And most engagement programs are sort of focused a little bit on this side of the triangle. Let's get more people involved in saving water so that we can, reach our traditional business case sustainability goal. Now, the right-hand side of the triangle is the traditional case, the HR case, more or less, for motivating employees about their jobs. And, there's study after study that shows that engaged employees, lead directly to better business results through increased productivity. They create increased customer satisfaction. Engaged employees show up to work more. They steal less from their employers. They help to strengthen the employer brand by talking about, they become missionaries for their organizations. And engaged employees tend to stay longer at their company, so it's a way to retain talent. So that is the traditional case for engagement. What the triangle tries to show is the relationship between all of these things. The base of the triangle shows that, and there's data in the book, and I'll provide some references here, that green team members are often higher motivated employees, which isn't surprising because maybe that's why they got involved in green teams in the first place. So there's no real cause and effect there. But what's interesting is that there is now data emerging that shows that non-participating employees, which are the vast majority for most of you, who know about green teams and about the efforts of your companies, their engagement scores are also beginning to rise. I call these bystander employees. Hashtag Ingersoll Rand, hashtag, am I using hashtag right? I don't know. And hashtag Starbucks. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about this later, but Starbucks programs are designed not because customers want them, it's because the employees want them. And engaged employees are core to their business model, obviously, and probably to yours too in some way. So the bottom of the slide shows that not only are sustainable people involved in green teams and bystanders more motivated, but as they become more motivated, they tend to also then get more interested in sustainability efforts. So there's a strong sort of synergistic effect here. So one of the reasons I am trying to get HR, how many HR people are here, by the way? Right.
2 or 3.
Well, one of the reasons I think it's important for folks like us to begin to get partnered up with HR, I mean, there's a million reasons, is that, HR people and CEOs are thinking about that right-hand side of the triangle all day long. I mean, this is what drives business. And what's interesting about this model, I think, is that it suggests a whole new and much more powerful business case for sustainability. Because if you can get 50,000 employees a little bit more motivated about their jobs through your sustainability efforts, that can dwarf the actual traditional business case benefits that companies are measuring. Or at least you get them both. I think the real question is how do you design sustainability programs to maximize this kind of employee inspiration that we're talking about, both for the participants and for non-participants, because the business bang there can really be huge. So, did I make 5 minutes? I don't know.
It was very close, thank you.
It's the shortest I've ever spoken. I'd like to continue. No.
Thank you, Andy. Let's hear now from both Krista and Ezra, starting with Krista, just to hear a little bit more about what's been going on at your company. If you could recap what you've been doing at your company and maybe what's next on the horizon, that would be great.
Sure. So just to sort of set the stage for Wells Fargo, we are a large financial institution of about 265,000 team members across the country, as well as some operations globally. So we have green teams in India, for example, as well as in the Dominican Republic. So our Our team, the environmental affairs team, and the team I sit on, is a small team of 7 that's part of a larger group that's focused on social responsibility at the company. So we do have partner teams that focus on more of our community engagement and our diversity and inclusion work. So I'm specifically focused on our sustainability work at Wells Fargo, so how we get our 265,000 team members working on green teams or towards sustainability initiatives at the company. One of the big things we do at Wells Fargo is focus on our green teams. We have about 75 around the company. We, at any time, have between 5 to 10 sort of in the stages of launching. They're primarily geographically oriented, and they look for those opportunities in the business for us to make green choices. But as both Liz and Andy mentioned, we really try to broaden that. So it's more about creating a culture of sustainability for us at Wells Fargo. So while we seek to engage those very passionate, deep greenies in the green team world, we also seek to engage people who might be a lighter shade of green through education on our intranet, right? So having articles, ways that they can get involved just through a single action. We also seek to find ways to include our business partners. So we're a small team of 7, but we have business partners throughout our 80 plus lines of business. So how do we get our corporate properties or real estate team involved? And those are all sort of extensions of our employee engagement program really at Wells Fargo. So that's what we like to say, that we're sort of trying to reach every shade of green. And so wherever you are, we hope we'll help move you along to be a deeper shade of green somewhere in the process. But if we can catch you with just one action, that's a good thing.
And Krista, just a quick follow-up question. How many years have you had green teams at Wells Fargo?
We've had green teams. So green teams have always had sort of this right to organize at the company through a community of practice groups. And we've had those teams around since 2008 or so. But when my role was created at the bank, it was actually to help sort of professionalize the green teams and make them more core to the business. So we've been focusing on that for the last 4 years.
And would you say your full-time job is focused on the green teams?
Full-time job focused on employee engagement. The green teams probably take about 60% of that.
Okay, thank you.
If that helps.
Ezra.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ezra Garrett with Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and a little bit about our company. We're the gas and electric service provider for Northern and Central California. 15 million Californians are our customers, 1 in 20 Americans, basically. And we have 22,000 employees. We're headquartered here in San Francisco, so Wells Fargo is our neighbor. And by the way, Krista, I want to congratulate Wells Fargo on your announcement last year to fund $100 million in environmental and sustainability initiatives. Wells Fargo, true leader, and we do a lot to steal their good ideas and implement them at PG&E. So we define employee engagement the same way as the others here on the panel. It's not just about employee satisfaction. Engaged employees are more productive employees. They're connected to the vision of our company, and they feel that they have an input into how decisions are made and how their work is done. And fundamentally, that's what sustainability should be about from a corporate standpoint. It's not just about being green. It's not just about environmental sustainability, but it's about driving inefficiencies out of your processes and passing those savings back to the business or back to your customers. And so for us, what we try to do with employees is engage on multiple levels, both with the super green and the light green, or the bystanders. So we also have a grassroots green network, as we call them. They're our green team at PG&E, and they're very active and motivated in developing their own ideas to help the company be more sustainable in terms of our own operations. We're recognized as a national leader in terms of green products and services that we offer to our customers. But what the green teams at PG&E do is they help our company operate our business in a more sustainable way. So they've taken a real leadership role in helping the company to meet its goals around waste diversion in our own facilities, and they create contests amongst each other, floors versus floors, buildings versus buildings. And I think that the key to success for them is fundamentally empowering them to make decisions and to take action, and helping them to understand where they can take action in a way that it's aligned with our company's business goals. It's always a challenge trying to figure out, okay, how can we get team members involved in our green teams, right? We necessarily put the pressure on ourselves to create vehicles that are relevant and interesting and fun. But fundamentally, this is just going to be an add-on to an employee if it's not also relevant to business results. And so that for us has sort of been the key factor as we contemplate, what's the next vehicle we can create to get employees engaged. The other thing that we're thinking about is, where is there a vehicle already available to us that we just need to formalize and make folks aware, make a bystander or a light green employee aware that actually, no, you're pretty dark shade of green what you're doing here as part of this larger effort. An example that I would point to is our sustainability team's effort each year to create the content for our company's corporate sustainability report. Right, as you're pulling these reports together, it's not really a report on everything the sustainability team is doing, right? It's really the narrative around things that the lines of business are doing to make our company run in a way that's sustainable for the long term. And so as part of our process, we're engaging director level leaders in our company in each of our core lines of business. We're talking about generation, gas system operations, electric system operations. So we're talking with them about the things they're doing to be sustainable in their business, how they're delivering on our service to our customers while keeping the benefits close to home. And it's sort of a task or an add-on for them, but what they don't realize is that they actually are sustainability at PG&E. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, how do we formalize this group and maybe put a name on it that sort of helps them to be recognized as playing a role in this, and actually lets them know that that's an easy light green to dark green conversion that's available to us. So that's sort of a snapshot of sort of where we're at within the engagement program at our
And
company.
Ezra, I'm also curious about your staffing. How much employee resources are devoted to managing the green team effort?
So the Green Team effort, it's really sort of a volunteer program. So they're actually one of our many employee resource groups. And I will note that our company, we track employee engagement and we benchmark ourselves against the top 100 admired companies and favorite places to work in the top 100. And what we've seen is that right now, our company, we're sort of high second quartile overall. But the ERGs, including the Grassroots Green Network, they're actually, their overall score would be in the first quartile. So we have been able to make the business case that there's a correlation between involvement in programs like this. Our corporate sustainability team is about 5 people, but they're part of what we sort of assembled as sort of a corporate social responsibility function with our community affairs team. So total, we're about 32 people.
Thank you. We have a polling question back up, so if you haven't yet, can you please take a minute to respond? And we'll see if we stick with these current winners. But in terms of issues that are and concerns that you have about employee engagement, it looks like right now there's a link between employee engagement to the core business strategies, a challenge for about a third of you, and then expanding and scaling up for about a third. So let's talk next about that second answer choice, which is about linking employee engagement to the core business strategy. Ezra, you talked a little bit about that, but can you expand on what you were saying about how you've made that link? And Krista would like to hear from you as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I was looking at the results.
Oh, sure, sorry. But just to dive down a little bit deeper into how you're linking employee engagement to core business strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So our company has already sort of validated the link between employees who have a higher level of engagement overall to employees that are more effective and employees that are better aligned with what the company's business goals and objectives are. And so what we're trying to do is support that and utilize that, again, as a vehicle to engage folks on the sustainability program. And what we're doing is looking for new ways to link employees to new areas of focus within our business. So over the past couple of years, our company has really taken a back to basics approach to how we manage our business, with a specific focus on enhancing public and employee safety. So as part of that, what we've done is helped provide guidance and tools and resources to our employees to help them to mobilize around finding opportunities within their workspace, whether it's a service yard, a vehicle garage, a fleet garage, or in an office building, to identify hazards or opportunities to make the areas that they work more safe. Also from a public safety standpoint, helping to identify ways for us to respond more quickly when we get a call for wires down. And we've actually seen over the past year alone that there have been several initiatives that this grassroots safety network has launched and piloted that have been deployed company-wide amongst all of the fleet garages, for example, or amongst certain buildings out in the field. So, success like that is tremendous, and you can't really sort of stop there. You've got to do whatever you can to sort of promote those wins and drive awareness across the employee base that, look, being involved in this way is great, and you can actually have a measurable result. So, we tend to think about this thing as sort of a project or program life cycle. How can you create the vehicle to involve employees? How can you sort of take these wins and scale them across the business? But you can't stop there. You've got to make sure that you're communicating back to the entire employee base about this success so that you can hopefully keep the momentum going.
I would agree with that. You definitely have to keep the communication going and really recognize the efforts. I think that's a really important part of this volunteer work. When you have your line of business partners or your green teams as volunteers, you really need to go above and beyond and recognize. So we try to do that too. That's a great idea. So the big thing for us at Wells Fargo is, Ezra had mentioned our commitment to $100 million in philanthropy funding. That was part of a larger strategy that we rolled out last year, April 2012. And as we went through that process, we really took it as an opportunity to engage at every level of the organization. So looking at our different stakeholders and the different lines of business, saying, what can we ask you to be accountable for? How can you help us reach this greenhouse gas reduction goal? How can you help us with our energy efficiency goals? We really set those goals around three big areas: around our communities, around our operations, and also around our business, so how we're making investments with our business. And in that process as well, that allowed us to really start to create sort of an accountability system. So going back and getting these metrics on an annual basis. Hopefully we'll move to a more quarterly basis soon. So if you've had a chance to see our CSR report that we just launched a couple weeks ago, we've got our first year of updates on that report, and that's one of the ways that we keep kind of bringing that back to the business. Specifically with our green teams though, we've also really trying to make their work not just maybe the passion of a few individuals, but core to the business as well. And so something we instilled this year is a business planning process for our green teams. So each of our green teams signs up for a goal that maps into the three goals that we set. So what's one way they're going to kind of help their business, what's one way they're going to help in the community, and what's one operational project that they'll do. And we help them track to those goals, we help them find the right engagement and support, and then we help them find the metrics that can really track their impacts as well. And that's one way we can start to demonstrate the ongoing business value of these employee engagement groups.
Yes, do you want to
I think, I hate to sound like a nerd, which I am, but I think measurement is critical here. Can we put the triangle back up for a second? What I've been doing with companies is to try and get them to measure the impact of their sustainability programs on overall employee motivation. Because this becomes highly interesting, not just to HR, but to the C-suite generally, because there are all sorts of connections between more motivated employees, as I've said, and business results. But if you're not measuring, if you can't demonstrate it, then you're falling back on the traditional saving money case or no case at all, or reputational case. There's a real science to measuring employee engagement. Not everything moves the needle. 100% of your employees might love your code of conduct, or might think it's the greatest, or might even think your green team thing is the greatest. But if it doesn't correlate to more motivation, it's sort of limited in its effectiveness to drive the business. So one suggestion is to reverse design your programs. Figure out what programs, this is like the tail wagging the dog, but what kind of sustainability programs would actually work to motivate your employee base. Some people want to do it because hands-on problem solving, like engineers. So, that's how 3M got going on pollution prevention. They designed an incentive program so that engineers could get hands-on. Other people are inspired by what their peers are doing. It's friendship in a sense that drives employee engagement. And that's one of the 5 factors that like Gallup measures, do I have friends at the company? So those would suggest sort of teaming things. Other people are just inspired by the mission. You don't need to. This is going to sound heretical, but it isn't important so much to get everybody involved in this from a purely driving the business perspective. But what is important to a lot of companies is simply communicating these efforts to employees and then tracking to see if their awareness boosts engagement. At Ingersoll Rand, they found out that not only were green team members, they measured this with thousands of employees, not only were green team members more engaged, but the locations that had green teams saw overall employee engagement go up because they were just sort of, the other employees said, wow, this is great. Even if they were so light green that they didn't really even want to do anything themselves. In some cases, don't even really care about the issue. But they just got inspired by these teams for some reason. So, but you can reverse design it. Start with what's going to motivate my employees. Talk to your HR people, talk to your operations people, what floats people's boats, and then design the programs that way.
That's a great suggestion, Andy. Thank you for that. The next barrier that was on our poll was about expanding and scaling up. So I want to talk a little bit about techniques for that, and I actually want to call on Diana from the audience because I know she's in the midst of that right now. So are you willing to share a little bit about your current story?
Sure.
Do you want to use the mic?
Sure. Do you want me to just sit?
Yeah.
Hi, Diana Glassman with TD Bank, and we were in your shoes about a year and a half ago thinking, oh my gosh, how do we design an employee engagement program? And I wish I'd read your book, wish you knew it existed, I wish we'd spoken to you. We read everything that you wrote, and we never had a chance to speak, but we would love to do that. We did speak to you, and we did speak to several others in the room. And we actually didn't find anything that really worked for us. We have a very distributed service business. We have 1,300 retail branches, what we call stores, and some of these are tiny, 3, 4, 5 people. And how do you reach all of these? And so what we ended up doing was thinking about scaling up. What we created was, in our case, results drive scalability, results drive making the business case, results drive linking to the employee start. So we created a framework that we hadn't seen before. We call it the 4 H's of environmental leadership at TD Bank. It was basically Liz's framework, but broken down in a very simple, easy way to understand. The 4 H's are head, awareness, heart, passion, individual connection, hands, actually getting something done, whether it's reducing paper, planting a tree, going out and volunteering, and horn, that was the bit that we didn't see out there, but getting people to talk about it and engage each other. They don't want to be together and to talk to each other and to customers, but the trick really was going at each stage and quantifying it and figuring out how do you measure that. So on the head, we came up with a pledge. We can count the results. We're right now at 38% of our employees, over 10,000 people have taken that pledge. We know that means that at least 38% of our people are aware that we have a heartbeat at TD Bank. On the commitment and pride, that's how we decided to measure passion. That was a really, really hard one. How do you measure that? This is where the measure of engagement, and we learned from your literature that it's really commitment is an indicator and pride is an indicator. And we did a pilot program, and you could see the self-reported response rates. So I feel more proud because of environmental activity. I feel more committed to TD Bank. They raised about 10% and 7%. I mean, they're in the high 90s. We can quantify it. Our senior executives, there's one senior executive in particular who is not very talkative, but his eyebrows raised. And that sent joy everywhere around the bank because that those are numbers that really matter. So yes, engagement, pride, commitment, that matters. On the hand side, again, that's an easy one to measure, so we are able to count. On the horn side, that's a much harder thing to measure. How do you measure? You can look at the people talking on social media, the number of people replying to stories on the internet. We actually created a scorecard. We asked people to self-report. How comfortable are you talking about this to customers, to each other, what have you? And then at the end of a pilot, a 2-month pilot, we asked that same question again, and the number just shot up. So that is another indicator of horn. But having those metrics, being able to show before and after in a region that has had the launch of the Green Leaders Program, as we call it, and then after, and you see measurable increases, and we can measure it by year. So we love to slice and dice up the we like to slice and dice a lot at our company. So the more you can do it, the better off you go. I'd say that in terms of the scale up, we are no longer driving it. We have a much smaller team than any of you do. Because the pilot was so successful, because we were able to demonstrate their results, the retail, which is our largest line of business, their leadership is driving it. We are now supporting the leader of that first pilot into subsequent regions, and they have taken it over. And I would actually argue that is the way to scale it up. Let the business leaders scale it up for you and make it easy for them so that all they need to do is press a button.
That's great. Thank you. But it's
Hope that
success story.
helps.
Thanks, Diana. That's really exciting.